Hi, everybody. I'm Marie, Uplift's founder and CEO, and thank you so much for joining me tonight. We are going to wait a few minutes until everybody joins as well. And while we wait, I'm going to give you a few information about Uplifters and what we are doing. So Uplifters is a nonprofit organization empowering domestic workers with online education and peer coaching. So our signature program, the most important program we have, is a totally free online money management, mental health, and personal development course for domestic workers. It's all free. It's also Facebook. And if you have not enrolled yet, it's very easy. You just need to click on send message on our Facebook page. So you can do it now, actually. So this is tonight the 18th episode of our Uplift Your Nice series. And as always, super happy to be here with you. It's something we started last year with COVID, and we actually are going to continue it forever, I guess, because this is an occasion for us to be together with you in a sense, and that we can reply to your questions live and bring you additional educational advice and support. So clearly the first objective with this series is to be here together, and I want to encourage everybody to ask all your questions. So in the comment, and we will try to reply to them live. And if we don't have the answer, we may come back to you later on. This month, our theme is Know Your Rights. So every month we have a different educational theme. It's something that we want to discuss on social media. So tonight is, of course, about managing your rights under COVID-19 and managing your mental health as well, because we will see it often goes together. And the other thing I wanted to say is that today is also a special day because tomorrow is International Migrant Domestic Workers Day. So this is all the more important to remember everybody about the importance of domestic work and the importance of knowing your right and making sure that you can defend them if needed. We are very lucky tonight because we have with us Karen NG, which is a director of case management at the NGO Help for Domestic Workers in Hong Kong. And so she will be here with us in a few seconds. While everybody connects, I will still just wait a bit. But yes, just about help. So Help for Domestic Workers provides free advice and assistance on employment, immigration, and human rights issues to domestic workers in Hong Kong. So I can see we have already a few people with us. Don't hesitate to say hi in the comment, to say you are here, so we know that people are connecting. And while we still wait a few minutes, let me show you. So this is the information to contact Help for Domestic Workers in Hong Kong. So you have the WhatsApp number for the English and Filipino, and you have the WhatsApp number for Bahasa Indonesia. And I know that we don't have only viewers in Hong Kong here. We have also viewers from Singapore. So I just wanted to let you know that in Singapore, there is a similar organization that you can contact. Actually, there are two. So there is a Center for Domestic Employees, CDE, that you can contact. And there is also Home, which is an NGO with a helpline for domestic workers. So during the entire life, I'm going to show you the banner so that if you don't know these organizations, you can take note of these phone numbers, which are very important to know, either for you if you need help at some point or if you have any friend in need. So again, about help. Okay, I can see we have a few comments already coming. Okay, many people saying hi. I'm going to show your comment here. So hi, Sharo. Hi, Atala. I'm very happy to see you live with us. So Atala has been one of our first students and first team leader. It's always very nice to see her. Jotier, hello. Adi, hello. Jane Lin as well is one of our first students and the most committed team leaders. She's now one of our mentors. Supina, hello. All right, so I think we are already quite a few being connected. So please let us give a warm welcome to Karen. I'm going to add her to the live now. Welcome, Karen. Welcome to our live broadcast, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. Very grateful. I know it's very busy, as I said, with International Migrant Domestic Workers Day tomorrow. And very happy that you take time with us at such a late hour.
Well, thank you, Marie, for inviting me, and thank you to the entire Uplift community for finding us interesting enough to listen to. But definitely happy International Migrant Domestic Workers Day tomorrow.
Yeah, and we are already 23 connected now, so definitely this is an important topic for everybody. And as I said earlier, so I have a few questions for Karen that I know are important for all of you, but do not hesitate if you have your own questions, just add them in the comments. It's for you or for your friends. You know what's important here is that we reply to your question. So Karen, can you please tell us a bit more about what you do at Help for Domestic Workers, and maybe also a few words about your background so our community knows where you're coming from?
Yeah, sure. So, as you mentioned earlier, Help with Domestic Workers provides free advice and assistance to migrant domestic workers in Hong Kong on issues ranging from employment, immigration, human rights, and also criminal issues. And we're hoping to develop more into illegal lending issues too. And whatever we cannot do in-house, we do try to make referrals so that workers can get the necessary assistance or advice that they need. But yeah, we try to, do our best to make sure that workers are secure, are protected, are safe, and have what it is that they do need. So a little bit about me. I am originally from Hong Kong, but I moved to the US when I was quite young. Did school there. The last thing I studied was law. And after I finished school, I got a little homesick and I went to law school wanting to do human rights and workers' rights. And so after I got homesick, I decided to come back to Hong Kong. I knew I still wanted to work in that area. And I thought the work that HELP does is related to those issues. And so I joined HELP, and I've been with HELP for about 2.5 years now.
Wow, that's impressive. A lot of dedication. Wow, wonderful. Thanks for sharing about your background. And so you have been with HELP for 2.5 years, and I was wondering, so what are the most common cases that you face? And have you seen, the cases evolve a little bit with the pandemic, or, some cases becoming more recurrent?
Right. Yeah, sure. So the majority of cases that we see are employment cases. And of course, employment issues range. There are a lot of different types of employment issues. So we get inquiries on, say, computations, workers wanting to know what their termination or just like end of contract or end of employment relationship entitlements are. Some workers want advice on whether they should resign or not. Some workers want advice on what to do if their employers may not be, providing them everything that is within their rights, such as a full rest day or accommodations that's listed within their contract, or, asking them to work at a relative's home or their businesses or something. So just anything that might relate to a worker's rights, and they want to know more about and definitely know what to do in case those rights are breached. We see a lot of those cases. But of course, knowing all of that, we also see a lot of cases that do, involve labor, like the labor department or the labor tribunal. So cases that actually become claims. And so we do walk clients through all those processes, and we provide the whatever assistance that it is that they're asking. And so if it is that they need a lawyer's advice, we do bring in pro bono partners to provide advice and assistance. So a lot of different things, but those are all employment issues, and we do see everything within that umbrella. But
And so
in
just
terms of,
related to employment, oh yeah, sorry, but
yeah,
um, employment issues, because I guess, it's like so specific to each domestic worker. And then in some cases you will need to, as you said, file a claim. And in some cases it's more maybe, okay, so maybe you're not happy with this employer, but you need to change employer. So I guess each time your advice needs to be super, super specific, so you can give. So how does it work? So it's like a one-to-one conversation. The domestic workers you help, how do you connect with them usually?
yeah. So, of course, we have been doing a lot of webinars. So just we have increased our online presence because of COVID, and so through these webinars, we do provide more general information. And of course, for workers who have more specific questions about their own circumstances, they can reach out to us. And folks can see our WhatsApp numbers on the screen right now. And so workers who do need advice or assistance on anything can just go ahead and reach out to us on either of those numbers. Can also call those numbers, of course. And we can communicate with them on WhatsApp, via messages or on a phone call or video call if that's needed. But of course, the most efficient way is definitely in person. But given we're still in COVID, we do understand, workers may be afraid to come out, but we're also at the same time trying to limit the number of people at our office. And so we work by appointments. And so definitely for workers who you want to reach out to us, contact us over WhatsApp first would be fantastic. But we do try to give one-on-one time to clients who do want to talk to us.
Okay, yeah, it's great to know that you have WhatsApp, because I guess many people may be a bit shy to ask their question, and WhatsApp is quite easy, right? Just to say, hey, this is my case, can you help?
Exactly. And this is something that we increased attention to because of COVID, knowing that some workers may not be even allowed to go out on their rest days. And so that's why we decided to put more effort into WhatsApp.
Okay, well, that's great. And I just remembering everybody in Singapore. So there is also this similar NGOs there. So they do have toll-free helplines that you can call. But for the home NGO, you also have the WhatsApp number for domestic workers. So that's the same. If you feel more comfortable on WhatsApp, or if your friends feel more comfortable on WhatsApp, this is a great option to have, to reach out on WhatsApp first. So thank you so much, Karen. And you are saying most common cases are related to employment issues, but you may also have other kind of issues. And my next question was, so what are the most common issues under COVID-19, and how you reply to them usually?
So I think the most common issue that we are seeing at the office due to COVID is still employment, but also a lot of immigration issues, and also a lot of inquiries on loans, especially loans where the lending practices may be unlawful or questionable. And so in terms of employment, I do think there is a shift because of COVID. So before COVID, definitely we had more cases going to the Labor Department, going to the Labor Tribunal. But because of COVID, a lot of workers would prefer settling things and moving on with their lives, and so they do try to find ways to negotiate with the employer, or just find some way so that they can settle the entitlements issue instead of pursuing a claim at the Labor Department or the Labor Tribunal. And so it's just maybe assisting them with that negotiation process, or giving them tips, things like that. But in terms of immigration, because of COVID, a lot of workers have needed, say, visa extensions because there are just no flights at all, or they have inquiries as to how to get a new work visa, or just have that application go as smoothly as possible. And so we do get a lot of inquiries and inquiries for advice on immigration issues too. And lastly, we have been seeing a lot of inquiries or just a lot of people reaching out to us because they have issues with loans. And of course, given that COVID times, a lot of people have lost their jobs, families might be having financial difficulties or maybe relying on one person as the breadwinner. And so it's just hard times in terms of finances. And so we do see a lot of workers taking out loans because it's just, they need it, the family needs it.
Yeah.
And the problem here is we see a lot of loans where the interest rate is really high. And so some workers are having trouble paying back these loans. And so they want to know what it is that they can do, or maybe just like, what are their options? What are the risks and benefits of their options? And so these are, a lot of the things that we've been seeing because of COVID.
Well, I mean, that's very interesting to hear. I think the misconception could be, if I call this NGO, it's gonna be because I want to file a claim and I don't want to do anything like this. But so I think it's important for everybody to know that no, it could be just to find an arrangement with your employer if it's about an issue with your employer and to help you negotiate. And it goes way beyond this. So just like you said, lots of issues related to immigration these days, and also related to financial difficulties. And I think many domestic workers feel very lonely when they face financial trouble. So it's great to know that they have this, this line, and that even if, they don't have any other option, at least they would get support on finding a ethical money lender and making sure they're not getting exploited in the process.
Yeah, I mean, having gone to court, so a lot of the money lenders in Hong Kong need a license in order to actually operate. And so when I go to court, I actually see a lot of new money lenders popping up or applying for licenses. And so just want to implore everyone that, before you actually sign on to a loan, just make sure you read through the agreement. I mean, not even just about a loan agreement, just any agreement, anything that you're asked to sign, read through it, make sure you understand it, make sure you agree with it, and make sure nothing on there is, untrue or it's just not right. And so, read through everything, and before you read through everything before you sign it, and only sign it if everything is true and you agree with it.
Yeah, it's a great reminder. It's also something we have in our online course, Dare to Dream, that never sign anything on the spot. Always take the time to read it several times to make sure you understand it. And this is true for any kind of contract, as you say, for loan agreements, but also like for any kind of investment or any contract with your employer. Once you sign, you are legally binded. So it's very important to read things carefully and always feel okay to say anytime, I can't sign right now, but I will come back to you.
Yeah, exactly.
So as you said, there has been a lot of cases related to financial difficulties and immigration issues since the beginning of the pandemic. I guess it has come with a lot of stress as well. It's not easy to be able to negotiate with your employer or even just do your job well when you're having financial issues or when you have some immigration issues. How do you help these domestic workers, facing all this trouble? So of course you offer the practical support, but what are the other things that you can do to help them manage the stress, or that you would advise them to do to manage the stress?
Yeah. So I guess I would see it as 3 different steps. First step, to see what you could do for yourself, like internally. Second step, if that's not working, we also provide referrals to professional assistance. So if you need to talk to a peer support group that isn't about, what you're learning at Uplifters, but you want to talk to a group of people who are potentially also going through some struggles with work or struggles with personal life, but you may not want to talk to your friends about it, but you just want to talk to a group of strangers. We also have connections to these peer support groups, but we also have connections to professional counselors. And so that I would consider that's the second step. And of course, third step is if none of those work for you and you just want to get out of that situation, leave the job, do come talk to us or any other organization that might be able to provide advice and assistance to you to resign. But I think in terms of what folks can do for themselves, so this is something that I learned from Mind Hong Kong, but in terms in situations of stress or anxiety, something that is constant, something that's consistent, and person can feel some certainty from it. It's something that really grounds you, makes you feel you're in control. And so perhaps just finding a routine that works, or finding things in your surroundings or in your personal life that for sure gives you joy, and focusing on those things, and just giving yourself, wake up, look in the mirror, tell yourself, you got this, you can do this. And then before you go to bed, maybe think about one thing you're grateful of, but just something that is constant, like a routine, might help you find more control, and then trying to see things from a different perspective. Like, oh, okay, maybe my employer is not happy with my work today. Focus on, okay, but that means that there were other things that I did do right. So there's positive in that. And then, okay, maybe the employer didn't like this certain way. I can try a different way to do it tomorrow. So always try to find a different perspective into things first. And if that doesn't work, then like anything that you're working with internally or with yourself, if that doesn't work, then seek assistance. And if that also doesn't work, then come talk to us. We can see if getting out of that situation is what is right for you, or what it is that you really want to do.
Yeah, thank you for this good advice. There is never a magical solution, but little things can really make a big difference. And as you said, creating some small routine to help you regain control on your daily life, and small things you can do to make you happy in the morning and the evening. We are big fans of the gratitude rituals as well, sharing something that made you happy during the day. Breathing techniques, these kind of things help a lot. That's also something we try to cover in our course. But it's always easier to practice when you are not in a very stressful situation, so that it's already there. And of course, we are all humans, and we know how hard it is when you are in the middle of a crisis. And that's also, I think, just getting some support is a big. Well, knowing that there are people that are here to listen to you, like you guys, makes a big difference. Talking about the community, I just want to show, so we have a lot of new comments and people who join us. So let me show that. All right, so we have Anne-Marie who say a lovely evening, Marie and Uplifters. We have Rumaile, good evening, Marie and Karen. Baze, Nida, Dina. Wow, we're very very lucky tonight. Many people with us. Baby Joy, Mary Jane, Elaine May, also one of our team leaders, a gold team leader, actually, you can see on the photo. Tonette, Daniela, Liz, one of our mentors as well. Nelly, one of our older students. MB, okay, now, all right, so we have a question from Liz. What to do if you are terminated on the spot in the middle of the night and you have to pack and leave within 30 minutes? Oh, that's that's awful.
Yeah, so I guess one thing, well, before I really answer that question, one thing I want to let you all know is that one thing that Help is working on doing is training a group of trainers. So these trainers are folks who have received assistance from Help before. So they are former clients, and so they've probably gone through a difficult process themselves also. But these trainers are all from different districts within Hong Kong, and they would be great like sources of information and resources. So say if someone is terminated in the middle of the night and they need a place to go, where are the shelters, where are the boarding houses in the area, and if that worker say needs medical assistance, like where the hospital, how to get there, things like that. So we're hoping that these trainers can be a wealth of information within the districts, so that for folks say who are in bad situations in the middle of the night are able to get some assistance, even though say Help may be off hours, and so we may not be responding to messages. But for folks who are terminated on spot in the middle of the night and employer asks them to leave, so for folks, I guess I can break it down first. So first things first is the belongings, and then second thing would be the where to stay. So in terms of belongings, of course, I mean, this whole situation is bad, but whatever you can pack it. And of course, we still do suggest that the worker allows the employer to look over the things, because the thing here is that if the worker leaves without letting the employer look, our fear is the employer is going to accuse the worker of stealing things. And so letting the employer check first is a guarantee that, you're not bringing anything out, and they have confirmed you haven't taken anything. And so our suggestion is to let the employers check your belongings. But while they're checking it, of course, get evidence that they're checking it, so that if they, after you leave, the employer accuses you of stealing, well, then you can say, you checked my bag, there was nothing there at that time.
But
so
make the employer sign a paper. I guess they may not want to do so, but that's what you should try to do. Make them sign a paper. You check my belongings and I didn't steal anything.
Yeah, so that might be something too.
Because I'm just wondering, I mean, it's not even legal, right, to kick your employer, your domestic worker out in the middle of the night. Normally there is a notice, right? Can they do that?
So there is no specific time, period of time where employers can terminate, and there's no specific amount of time an employer needs to give a worker to pack. And so it's just a bad situation. Is a gap in terms of the protections a worker has. And so that's why there's just you see that a lot of people need support from their friends, from the community, from different organizations, from the consulate, from the agency. But yeah, it's a gap that has left a lot of workers in bad situations. So if a worker is, in that situation, but they think they're just afraid that the employer is going to do something, if the worker feels safe to call the police, the worker can call the police for assistance. We've also seen situations where the worker really didn't know where to go, didn't feel safe going home. And so the police allowed her to stay at the police station for a night. It sounds terrible. She wasn't detained. And so that's, still a shelter overhead. But it's just good to know who, friends in the area, other folks in the area, and just have a good idea as to where might be boarding houses you can go to in case you do need to access boarding houses in the middle of the night. But of course, if there are friends you can crash with, then that is also a great idea. But at the end of the day, this situation, Liz, that you've mentioned, is not something where there is a robust system to provide workers with safety or protection at that moment. And so the only thing that I can say is know who's out there to support you, and just have your own source
Support
of
network.
resources. Yeah, support network. There we go. That's the word. And then, of course, if say you still need shelter after that night is over, or you need other assistance, say you still have things at your employers, reach out to an organization. You can reach out to help. We can help you figure out what it is that you need to do, or refer you to a shelter, a shelter partner. But yeah, so
Okay,
not
no,
a
but
great
thanks.
situation.
No, for sure it's a tough situation, but it's great to know what to do. So first, if I may recap, so first thing is, if you don't have a choice, you have to leave. Pack your belongings. Take as much as you can, but make sure that your employer checks them, and if possible, sign a paper saying that he checked your belonging and he didn't find anything. Then you need to find a shelter for the night. Most likely you won't be able to reach out to shelters or NGOs because of course they're closed during the night. So that's where it's good to already have in mind a list of people you can call, a list of boarding house you can call in case of emergency. So to have these emergency numbers in your pockets, basically, knowing that if things go sour, if things go bad with your employer, normally, hopefully you know it before. So, but even if you don't know it, just try to always have this list of people you can reach out to. And then the next day, when it's daylight and everything, then you can reach out to help, for example, and they will give you like information on the shelters and what you can do in your situation. Okay, well, thank you. So we have a few more people who've joined us. So I'm gonna show with here as well. Don't hesitate if you have more question. So Karen is here with you. Mael, hello. Hiren, hello. Caro, hello. And enlightening us about the contract before going to signing it. So I think Karen will be able to give some information about Hong Kong. For the people watching us from Singapore, it may be a bit different for every answer, but like the basics are always true, meaning don't sign anything if you don't understand it, and take time if you need it. So yeah, so Karen, can you please give some information on like what would be the important things to check in Hong Kong before signing the employment contract, I guess?
I think in terms of the employment contract, do see, the number of people that you will have to serve in the home, the space that you'll be staying in, so pretty much what amenities the employer will be providing you. And lastly, the work duties on the back page. The thing is, we've seen a lot of situations where, yes, workers sign, on those terms, but then when they actually work, the entire work situation is different. And so when you know it's different, then you know, hey, something is wrong. And I hope that when you see that something is wrong, that you do seek advice and assistance for it. But one thing I can say in general is that if you see that what you signed is different from your actual work situation, the best thing, or what I usually say is the best friend, evidence is your best friend. So if you see that it's different, get evidence that, say, instead of the 2 people you sign to serve in the contract, the household actually has 5 people. Get evidence of the fact that there are 5 people.
What kind of evidence? Like taking photos? What would that be?
So photos, videos, audio evidence, even like letters addressed to multiple people within the household. So just any evidence that might remotely show that you are working in a household of more than the stated number of people in your contract. So another form of evidence might be, you message your friends saying, all 5 of them are eating at home today, and so I need to cook for all 5 of them, even though my contract said there were only supposed to be 2 adults. So something like that. Anything that is done on the spot can be used as evidence. So say one night you had to wash all 5 people's clothing. You don't message your friend till like 10 days later. That might not be something that you can use as evidence, but if it's like a very frustrated complaint you want to make to a friend that night or to a family member that night, and you message it to them, that might be used as evidence. So just anything remotely that may directly or indirectly suggest that the household has more than the number of people that you signed on to, that would be helpful. So in terms of like different accommodations issues, then photos would be helpful. And then work duties. Again, video, audio, photos, anything that might suggest that you are doing something that you should not be doing, that would be helpful.
So yes, so that's very good advice. And I guess this is very similar in Singapore, actually, like anything different in between your contracts and the reality. If you want to have a chance to complain about it, then you need evidence. And evidence, as Karen explained, can be photo, video, audio, text messages, whatever that can show that you are doing something different. That's what's stated in the contract. Thank you so much. So we have a few more questions and also more people joining and saying hi. So just going to show everyone saying hi, Jer. Hi, Maria. Liz is saying thank you for the information that you gave earlier. We have Christina as well saying hello. Datayo saying interesting topic. Good evening, Uplifters. And I have 2 more questions at the moment. I'm going to show the first one. So Ellen Mai is asking, is it normal in Hong Kong for employers to ask their domestic workers to hand wash their clothes every night and never use a washing machine? And need to clean the house before leaving the house and after returning during the day off?
Yeah, so in terms of hand washing clothes, I definitely have seen some cases where employers refuse to let workers use the washing machine. And these clothes may not just be the workers' clothes. Sometimes the employer's like, you cannot use the washing machine to wash our clothes. We don't want you to use that much water. So there have been just a whole variety of situations where the employer does not allow the worker to use the washing machine. So there is no regulation as to whether a worker should be allowed to use washing machine or not. So sadly, again, no source of protection or just guarantees for workers in those situations. But of course, if it's just too much work, say, there are just like 2 baskets of clothes you have to wash every day, but then you still need to cook all the meals, you still need to take care of like 2 children. There's just a lot of work where it's not possible for one person to do within a reasonable work day. Again, get evidence. So again, this might be complaints that you make to your family or friends. You may want to make keep diary entries of all the different tasks that you have to do every day. So in terms of diary, I do recommend that that you write it every day, because if in the end you do need to use it as evidence, having written it every day seems more like something that can be used as evidence rather than one entry every month, because in those cases, those one entry, like one entry per month might be seen as, oh, you wrote it, like when you needed it, 5 months down the line. And so those are not real. But if you actually wrote it every day and you can see all the different things that you did every day, that those might be more trustworthy. So I know if you already have a lot to do, writing diary entries seems like the last thing you want to do. But I just want to stress that evidence will always be your best friend, even if, say, you don't actually need it in the end, but it's just for cases where you actually do, you're ready for it.
Yeah. Okay. So thanks again. So evidence,
and I think,
diary, and again, I guess it's about before you sign the contract, again, as much as possible, clarify what is expected from you, so you don't. If just check about the washing machine, if you will be able to use it, so that you don't, in the end, once you have already signed, discover that this is what is expected from you.
Yeah. And I think there was a second part to the question about.
Yeah, let me show it back. Yeah.
Needing to do work
Clean the
before
house.
and after day off. Yeah. So this is actually very, very common. This is something that I hear from workers all the time. What I would recommend is evidence. Because if, say, at the end, the employer, if you do need to end up filing a claim, then this evidence can be shown that you were made to work while you were supposed to get a 24-hour full rest day, but you actually needed to work during this 24-hour period. The issue that I've seen a lot when cases do go to the labor tribunal where workers say they were made to work during their rest day is that a lot of the times the officer will ask them, well, did you have to do it? Couldn't you have left the dishes for the next day? And so you could have left it for the next day, therefore you did it voluntarily, therefore you cannot consider it work. So of course we all know that most of the time that isn't true. If you didn't do the work, your employer may be angry, or if you didn't wash the dishes, there may be cockroaches, and then the employer is going to be angry that there are cockroaches, and so you just want to get rid of the work that is piling up. And so I think in situations like that, still get evidence that you have to do work. And then if there are situations where you didn't do the work and then the employer got angry the next day, get evidence of the fact that your employer got angry too, so that in a sense it can be evidence that if you didn't do it, you would get into trouble or you would be scolded or things like that. Just anything that would prove that your situation or the fact that you needed to do work, that is not something that you willingly did. That because of the circumstances, you were either forced to do it, or if you didn't do it, you would get into trouble.
Okay, yeah, thank you. So I think in Hong Kong, the law says normally that you need 24 hours of rest, right? Just to precise, in Singapore, this is not the case, unfortunately. So the mom, which is the Minister of Manpower, has said that this is okay for the employer to ask you for light work duties in the morning and the evening of your day off. So light work duties is, of course, subject to interpretation. But this is the same. If you feel this is way too much, I think the best way forward is to get the evidence so that you can show that this is not light duties. So we have a few more questions and we're almost getting to the end of the live. So let me show them so we can try to reply to them. So Josephine is asking, there are cases where the domestic workers isn't allowed to stay at home while the employers are in the office, only allowed to go home when the employer is there. What can the employer do? Yeah, I think it's complicated. What will you do?
I've definitely seen this too. These are situations where the worker does not have the key to the home, and so they have to wait for the employer to get home in order to actually have access inside the home. I think this is tough. This is something that would require very well thought out negotiation with the employer, but at the same time, it may not be issues that the employer has with the worker specifically, but they may have had bad experience previously, and so they're just reacting off of that bad experience. And so in situations like that, I don't think it's something that can be done. Say, you seek assistance and you ask that organization to write a letter to the employer saying, hey, you can't do that. That might actually put you in a worse situation, because we've definitely seen a lot of employers get angry because they find out that a third party knows about the situation at home. And so, so before taking action like that, I would really, suggest that workers really think about their employer's personality, whether the employer would be open to a very friendly but honest discussion in person. But and then secondly, think about how that employer would react if a third party reaches out to them. And again, if a situation is just bad, you just cannot, continue working in a situation where the employer doesn't trust you, or may even be to a point where they're accusing you of doing things or blaming you for everything. Then, think about what that's doing to your mental health, whether you can tolerate that situation until you finish your contract. And if not, maybe seek advice or assistance on what is the best option for you.
Yeah, thank you. And I just want to highlight it, as much as you can, always try to communicate with your employer first. Find a way to share your concern with your employer, of course, very politely. Always better, because the moment, as Karen explained, someone else is intervening, your employer will feel accused and may react very aggressively. So even if you look for advice from help for another organization, it's always better, at the beginning, even if you get the support and then you get idea on how to negotiate, the employer doesn't have to know that you have contacted an organization. It's going to be easier if they think it's just you. And then if things go too bad, then of course the organization can maybe intervene. A few last questions. So we have Maria here asking how many hours domestic worker really need to work per day. I think it's also a good question, right?
Yeah. So again, there isn't a specified number of hours, minimum or maximum, for a domestic worker to work every day. And so again, a gap in terms of protections for workers. We've seen a lot of situations where workers are working like 13, 18 hours a day. And of course, that is just unreasonable. They're not sleeping. They're worn out. But we've also seen situations where, employer probably asks the worker to do one thing that day. Maybe like on the rest of the days, the worker is very busy. And so there's no minimum or maximum hour. But just, again, if you are overworked, it's just too much work, get evidence so that if you do end up leaving that employment situation and you have entitlements to claim against your employer, you already have the evidence to protect yourself.
Good.
And overworking may be, an indication that this employer may not be treating you right.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. So we have Let saying hi here as well and saying thank you. As you said, as we just explained, but coming back, it's not easy. We have another question here from Nida. All right, so I think Nida is in Hong Kong. Again, the situation is different from Hong Kong and Singapore. So let me reply quickly for Singapore. In Singapore, you cannot be pregnant while being under contract. So if you are pregnant, you will have to be terminated, even if your employer was okay for you to keep working. So that's different in Hong Kong. I will let Karen explain how is it in Hong Kong.
Yeah, so in Hong Kong, parties have the freedom to get into contracts. And so understanding that you and the employer are adults who have the capacity to make decisions for themselves, and understand what they are agreeing to. An employer can ask you to sign a letter like that. And of course, if you agree to it and you sign it, then technically you are under a contractual agreement for that. But just know that, getting pregnant or not getting pregnant, that is your right. That is your freedom as a person, as a woman. And so if, an employer does ask you to sign a letter like that, again, as Marie mentioned before, take some time to actually read what it is that they are asking you to sign. Consider it, whether that is, something you want to agree to. And if it's not, see if you can negotiate with your employer. And if it's not negotiable, then, think for yourself, is there something that I would be okay with within the 2 years I'm going to work for this employer? Is this employer someone I want to work for 2 years? And so, yeah, before signing anything like that, I think just, consider for yourself whether this is a contract you want to bind yourself to. And what did you do in case she gets pregnant? Yeah, so if the worker does sign that contract and does get pregnant, well, the employer can then sue the worker for breaking the contract. It is a valid contract as long as the worker does sign it, understanding what is, what are the terms of that contract.
So then if the employer breaks the contract, then they will not be entitled to maternity rights in Hong Kong, right?
If the employer breaks the contract?
Yes, if the employer terminates the contract because they had an agreement that she could not get pregnant, then is the domestic worker still entitled to maternity rights in Hong Kong?
So I would suggest, if that is a situation for any workers, to seek advice, and then if they come to us, then we would definitely get pro bono lawyers to provide legal advice. But just based on my knowledge, those would be two separate things. So your employment rights is still your employment rights, and then what you have signed in the contract is a contract issue. So employment issue and contract issue are two separate things. And so if a worker does get pregnant, there are maternity rights that the worker does have. And so if you are eligible for those maternity protections, then you would still be entitled to those. But then whether your employer can then sue you for having broken the contract, that might be a risk.
Yeah, well, and I guess you're working closely with Pathfinders for this kind of situation. The NGO serving pregnant domestic workers in Hong Kong and their children.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So if that is a situation you find yourself facing, do reach out to Pathfinders, and Pathfinders should be able to give you much better advice, because if you come to help, we might have to ask Pathfinders or ask our pro bono partners for legal advice. But if you go directly to Pathfinders, they may be able to give you more direct advice.
Let me just write on the screen Pathfinders so everybody has a name. All right. And I think that was our, it's already way late. It's already very late. So it's going to be time to wrap up. I'm going to show again the banners with numbers for everybody. So this is in Hong Kong, Help for Domestic Workers. You have the WhatsApp number and for English and Filipino, and the WhatsApp number for Bahasa Indonesia. You can take a screenshot, you can write it down in your notebook. You can remember help for domestic workers and look for it on Facebook. But just make sure you remember, not just for you, exactly Google, whatever, but just make sure that you remember it so that if you or one of your friends need it, it's on top of your mind. Same for Singapore. So you have the Center for Domestic Employees, CDE. They have a hotline. You have home helpline for domestic worker with also a top free 24-hour 7 hotline. And you have also a WhatsApp number. So these organizations exist, are doing great job. You need to contact them if anything happens. They're here for you. before we leave, let's do our evening ritual together. So we're talking about mental health earlier. And so this is a simple ritual that we do in our online course, Dare to Dream. It's just about sharing at the end of the day what made you happy today. And yeah, Karen, what are the three things that made you happy today?
Three things that made me happy today. I think waking up, the ability to have woken up and getting out of bed, I think that is always a win. That's a small win for every day. One.
Yes.
Second thing is, so we have new interns, and today our interns did their first interview without anyone watching, so that made me proud. And thirdly, being here with all of you.
Thank you so much, Karen. Yeah, me
And
as
you.
well. So it's actually it's interestingly quite similar. So I welcome today a new team member at Uplifters, our new finance manager, Jeanette. So it's super nice to have someone new on board. I was also very happy to see my little son is 2 years old, and I saw a video of him starting to swim in the swimming pool, and it made me very proud. And lastly, of course, to be here with you tonight and being able to get quality information on these difficult topics. So thank you so much, Karen. I feel very grateful and happy that we have been able to do that for the community.
Thank you all for having me again.
It's almost midnight, so I think it's time to wish a happy International Migrant Domestic Work Day to everybody. And again, if you have any kind of trouble, ask for help. And if your friends are in trouble, make sure they get the help they need as well. Have a good night, everybody, and see you soon. Thank you again so much, Karen.
Good night. Thanks for having me. Happy International Migrant Domestic Workers Day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.